Hello everyone, checking back in on the cryptocurrency space here. We'll look at the big three and then Golem. So the bears are still in control. The bounce has not played out overnight as anticipated, or I should say overnight and into the next day. So we are barely clinging on to supports at these levels, seeing the lows of the pullbacks essentially be tested here. I'm going to be looking at everything on the 4-hour time frame to start, and then we'll zoom out a bit. We'll zoom in a bit, and we'll look at a little bit of more information. So obviously with technical analysis, we're not right all the time. And what we're doing is tilting the odds in our favor. And what I do fear when I make these videos is that someone's just going to buy in and say, oh, you know, Dan says we're going to 230. And then they don't have the skills to recognize when things go wrong or when things are clear red flags for that happening, which I'll point out all the individual red flags that stood out to me. So I really don't want anyone just trying to follow along with me and then being stuck in a trade. Like if there's someone still holding right now, obviously that would be a really bad thing. But, well, I mean, not really bad. It all depends on your time frame and all that. But you know what I mean? My point is I'm constantly flipping things. I've been in and out maybe 3 more times since I made the video last night. And I'll point those trades as well. But I just don't want anyone to just blindly follow me and then close their eyes and cross their fingers, because that's certainly not what we're doing as technical analysts. We have our game plan, we have our target, we have our stop levels, and then we're watching for little details to give us clues about what's happening and not just, you know, buying and hoping. That's really a bad idea in my opinion. So let's look at it on the 4-hour time frame, and I want to keep comparing everything back to the dump we had back on June 26th, because it is fairly similar at this point. There are some key differences that stand out to me, but in this scenario, we had a dump. We had the oversold 4-hour RSI. We saw a bounce attempt. We pulled all the way back. Keep in mind, we went from 206.50. We bounced up to 260. We saw a $50 bounce. We pulled back and we bounced off of 211. So a $5 higher low just when it looked like we were about to collapse and continue to the downside. The bulls showed up and ripped to the upside. But the thing that stood out there was very significant bull volume in both instances. We don't have that right now. So it is a very similar pattern on the bounce that played out. It was a weaker bounce, and then we pulled back, and now the bulls are barely trying to cling to the low, just like they did in the past bounce attempt. Again, that was $5. We're currently holding it by about $6 at this point. So it is still possible that we hold support and turn things around, but that's not going to happen without bull volume. So look at the bull volume here. On the first green candlestick, we saw tons of bull volume. Granted, it was a $50+ bounce, but then we saw another big surge in bull volume with, you know, a clear follow through and a break with our higher low and higher high, breaking the lower high pattern. So here we had a ton of bear volume. We did not see the bull volume on the bounce candlestick. That bull volume is not there. And on the follow through candlestick, a big upper wick of profit taking. So that was our lower high being set. The bounce that ended up playing out was 175 to 213. So that was a $33 bounce, and it might be comparable if you look at the percentages, because this was a bounce from the 200s, this was a bounce from the 175, so fairly close, a little bit weaker in terms of price movement for sure, but we set our lower high, we continued to set lower highs, and now we're pulling back, and we have to form a higher low holding 175, otherwise we are going to see another leg to the downside, and where we're going to stop from there, I can't possibly say. We have support at 167, and then I would be looking at 150 psychological, but the RSI is obviously a lot less meaningful. I am certainly still watching these indicators. The MACD is closing in a lot closer to a potential bullish MACD cross. If the bulls can form a higher low and start to head back towards 200, we will see a bull MACD cross on the 4-hour time frame, which would be a great sign for the bulls, because that was an indication on the second leg to the upside the last time that was letting us know the bulls were in full control, and then we saw that follow through. So there is still potential that the bulls could save the day, but we are with our backs against the wall as bulls. So the RSI is still oversold. We've been under 30 now for a pretty long time, multiple days. And if we do see another leg to the downside, the RSI is going to go right back into the teens, and we will still be watching for an oversold bounce. It will come eventually where we will see a couple of days of upside. Even if it just sets lower highs on the daily, we will see a couple day bounce. It's just a question of at what point. And right now, that is a big question mark. So let's zoom in and look at, actually, let's look at the daily, and then we'll zoom in and look at some things that I've been doing, and some clues. The clues that the bears were still in control. The first one being the lack of volume on the bounce on the 4-hour chart. So here on the daily time frame, looks like a volume climax and the potential for a bullish reversal candlestick to form when we had a doji here earlier today, but by the end of the day, when the candlestick closed, it is now a lot weaker. This is technically a bullish reversal spinning top candlestick, but we have to confirm that with another green day, and we haven't seen 2 green days in a row in Ethereum since the last oversold dump. So the bears have very much been in control now from June 28th all the way until now, which is pushing on 2 weeks of just bearish action, 1-day bounces, and no follow-through. So a ton of bear volume. The bulls are attempting to show up here, but not really following through at this point. The RSI on the daily time frame is oversold right at 30 for the first time in 2017, and we'll be watching that as well. And where I get that 167 support from, I'm looking at the low of May 29th, 167, and then looking at 160, the low of the day before it, and then 150 psychological. And then after that, we're looking down at 115. So the bulls really want to hold 175 ideally. And even then, we could see 175 hold, or wherever we bounce from, we could see, you know, a multiple day bounce and still set lower highs on this daily time frame, remaining in control by the bears, but it would still be a significant bounce at this point. So overnight, we did see a bounce from 175 up to 213, which is solid. It's a $38 bounce, but obviously it got no follow through. So let's look at the hourly time frame. And what stands out is that every single bounce is a lower high. So we had our original low on the dump. We bounced up to 216.50. We then dumped overnight and set a new low. We bounced up to 213 even. So it's a lower high compared to that level. And let's look at what the red flags were. So I made the video last night, and I'll go over my trades and then the red flags. I made the video last night, and I was looking to re-enter after exiting. I forget where my exit was exactly, in the upper 2 teens, and looking to re-enter at 200, and that did fill, and looked like there was potential there for the bulls to show up, because we did form a lower wick here. Looked pretty solid with the bulls buying the dip, and then we saw continuation to the downside. So I did another flip where I sold at 192 and rebought at 185, and then this morning, and then I went to sleep, and I fortunately missed the next leg to the downside because I might have sold after before this bounce played out. So I slept through this dump and was confident that the oversold RSI would keep things in control, which it did to a degree. And we saw this bounce play out in the morning, and I got out in the 211 to 212 range this morning. I had a really nice exit there, fortunate in that regard, and then reloaded again down in the low 200s. And then same thing, I sold at about 192, reloaded 185, and similar trade to what I did last night. And just essentially every time I'm rebuying, I'm having more ETH than I've ever had before. And obviously we're in a downtrend still. I am shaving off my cost basis. And like I said, the most ETH I've ever had before. So if and when this oversold bounce does occur, it is going to occur. The question is when, not if. When it does occur, I will have a significant amount of ETH to ride it back to the upside and potentially even turn a profit. We'll see how it all continues to play out. Definitely a difficult go of things trading. I would much rather be in a different position. Obviously, in an uptrend would be nice. That makes it easy for the bulls. But we'll take what we can get here and just patiently flipping things as I can on the way down. Where we see a key support break, I'll sell, and then I will rebuy on the significant dip to the downside, and then I'll sell again on the lower high that does end up eventually, inevitably forming. So the red flags here, first off, the fact that we broke to a lower low and didn't hold that original low of 185 was the first red flag. That doesn't mean that we can't still see a significant bounce from that level. That just means, okay, things aren't going as we anticipated, so we need to take a step back and reassess the situation and make sure and protect our trade. So we ended up seeing a significant bounce from 190, or I take that back, 175. So 175 all the way up to 213. And then we started pulling back. So here we are this morning saying, okay, that's a solid bounce, but it's just another lower high. So at this point, the bulls have to form a higher low and then a higher high. We have to see that happen. Otherwise, the bears remain in a trend, control of the trend with lower highs and lower lows. So it looked like after these 2 hours of consolidation, this looked like solid consolidation on decreasing bear volume, a little bit of lower wicks of bulls buying the dip, and we were looking for the bulls to show back up and see higher highs. We saw an inside bar on the hourly time frame, bull break of that inside bar, far, but no follow through with regards to volume. Right here is when we needed to see some big spikes in volume, a break of 213, a break of 216.50, and we would have been on our way to 230. Obviously, that did not happen. The upper wick showed profit taking, and we pulled back from there. So the red flag was breaking this low. Once we broke 192, that's why I sold at 192 and then rebought down at in the 185s, and I rebought at 185 because we had support from the original pullback at 183, and we had some oversold shorter term time frames. The 5-minute RSI was oversold, it bounced, and then it dipped, that little double dip back in the oversold RSI level on the 5-minute time frame. With that 183 support, had me re-enter in the 185s. So that was a nice way to, you know, take $7 off the cost basis. But we are just continuing with lower highs and lower lows. So where we stand right now, this is a bullish reversal candlestick on the hourly. It is a doji forming. This candlestick's going to close in 2 minutes. It's 11 p.m. Eastern, and we have to confirm it. The other red flag is, along with no bull volume, is we have not seen 2 green candlesticks in a row on this hourly time frame since the top of the bounce from the low was hit. So if we can't see 2 green candlesticks in a row, we obviously have no bull momentum to the upside, and the bears are keeping things contained. So we have to confirm this bullish reversal candlestick this next hour of trading. If we don't, that's another red flag that we're likely going to head back down to 175. If we can confirm it, the bulls will need to break 196 overnight to break this lower high pattern, and then we would be looking up at 206 from there. So 196 and 206 are the 2 main resistances where we have topped out most recently, and if we cannot hold 181 support, we're looking back down to 175 and then 167, and the daily time frame is on the verge of oversold. So here we go. We need a green hour here. We're going to learn a lot between 11 and 12 p.m. Eastern, and we're going to see if 11 p.m. and 12 a.m., and we're going to see if we can confirm this candlestick or not. So that's where we stand right now heading into overnight, and going to keep, you know, moving in and out of trades and lowering cost averages and taking profit when I can, and just positioning myself for when this hourly trend does change, because again, it will change at some point, but we want to limit our risk and exposure while we wait for that to happen. So checking in on Bitcoin, it was a bit of a different scenario, and this definitely makes ETH bulls nervous right now because we're on the verge of a break to the downside, a lot closer than we are on Ethereum. So the bounce back at the end of June was the same thing, with volume being significant. Had some pretty solid volume for the Bitcoin bounce here, and Bitcoin did hold the higher low overnight, where Ethereum and Litecoin did not. So that did put Bitcoin as a stronger bull compared to those others, but same thing, we're still setting lower highs, and we are down now with the RSI on the 4-hour time frame right back to 22. So we're close to seeing our hourly RSI in the teens, and we are testing that support. The low that we've seen is 2250, and we just bounced off 2250, so that is a double bottom right now. And if you are in Ethereum or Litecoin, you're watching this Bitcoin move, because if Bitcoin breaks 2250 and sees another leg to the downside, the odds favor that the other names will follow and see that same weakness. So we should be watching Bitcoin absolutely. Let's look at the hourly time frame here, where we see we did break the lower high pattern. So this was significant, and this was a bit of a fake out, because I would have absolutely anticipated once we broke the lower high pattern to be looking for higher lows and higher highs to continue from here. So the fact that we pulled back so significantly, and again, the red flag here was this consolidation. This is very bullish consolidation on decreasing bear volume with lower wicks of bulls buying the dip. We just saw no follow through and continuation. We faded, and as soon as we broke 2335, that was the same bear signal that ETH was at 192. That was the red flag that the bulls have no momentum, and we're heading back down without a ton of support established to our recent lows. So here we are forming a bullish reversal candlestick on the hourly time frame, and we must follow through. And it's not nearly as bullish a reversal candlestick as ETH is, but we're watching for clues to see what's going to happen here on Bitcoin, to potentially look at what's going to happen on Ethereum. So here's an uptrend support line on the daily time frame for Bitcoin. We have our dips with big, long, lower wicks and hitting those higher lows. We are right there right now. The daily time frame is not near oversold like Ethereum is, so there is still daily potential room to the downside. We could easily see this daily time frame dip down to 2,000. So I would just want everybody to be aware of that. If we do see another leg to the downside here, we could easily, I mean, the 4-hour RSI at that point, if we do see another leg to the downside, is going to be down into the teens. But the daily time frame certainly has a lot of room before we're oversold, so we need to be cautious of that as well. And right now, It's all about whether or not the bulls can hold that low. And in terms of what we need to see happen, we have to see a lower high be set, because there's no way the bulls are going to make it right back to 23.56. The volume's just not here. We have to see it bounce, another lower high, pull back and form a higher low, and then see a higher high with a change of the trend on the hourly time frame. But again, the bottom line of this video right now is that the bulls don't have the volume. The volume is not showing up to give any kind of confidence that there is significant dip buying going on, because when we see a ton of bear volume to the downside, we know that the whales and the big money are likely short, and they're likely driving the price to the downside, along with, all the fundamental reasons. People are exiting, about the split in August, the ICOs, all of this that is having people, cautious. At this point, anybody that's getting out for those reasons is out, in my opinion. But that is something to be aware of. So the fact that we see all this bear volume, we can assume, okay, big money is looking bearish here. And when we see an oversold bounce like we saw back at the end of June, it was clear that big money was loading to go back to the upside. And it was a significant move to the upside. But we don't see that big money loading with this volume on this current pullback. And Bitcoin's now trying to set that lower high. So we'll see how this plays out again as well. Overnight's very important here. So another thing I want to talk about, just in terms of fundamentals, a lot of people are talking about the reason that we're dumping is the ICOs. I'm sure it has an effect, absolutely. Anytime you see an increase in supply, there is an effect. But you have to be aware that the market is well aware of these events. They know about these ICOs. They know that they're going to drive down the price of Ethereum. And whenever the market knows something, it's already priced into the market, right? So we're not smarter than the market. The only time we can outsmart the market with news is inside information that the market is not aware of, or, surprise news that leads to a big bull or big bearish reaction, depending on what it is. But whenever it's something that's a known event, it's already being priced in. So I am a big believer that once this August fork comes, that we're going to see bulls buying the dip right away. We might see a quick flush to the downside, but I think that we're going to see people re-enter and say, oh, okay, this guy didn't fall, and I want to get back into my positions here. And that's number one, the contrarian in me. As a contrarian, you look the other direction. If the herd is all looking in one direction, you look the other way and start to look for clues, for signals there. So the fact that everybody's saying, oh man, the price is going to crash and all this, that definitely has me thinking, okay, the price is not going to crash. And the other thing, anybody that is fearing a price crashing on August 1st is going to be exited by then, right? So the people that are going to be left are either people that are long and not caring about what's going to happen August 1st, or people that don't believe that we're going to see weakness. And then, in my opinion, if we do see the lack of a crash, who's going to be selling? Everybody that has already feared this event is already out. And I do believe that we're not going to see a significant dump from that point. Maybe we dump until August 1st, I don't know. But at August 1st, I do believe that we're not going to see a massive dump. And I do believe we're going to see a bounce, and we're going to see the bulls show up as people say, oh, okay, that wasn't so bad. I want my position back. And that's what I'm going to be looking for to happen August 1st. Just went off a little bit of a tangent there, but let's get into Litecoin. So Litecoin on the 4-hour time frame, lower highs and lower lows are starting to come into play now a bit, and just can look at the daily time frame because it's a completely different setup than the others. We still have a higher low pattern. The bulls are still in control of this overall chart, and we could pull back another few dollars here down to 40. We could pull back to 38 and the bulls would still be holding higher lows. So ideally they want to hold $40. That'd be a nice psychological support level to hold. We are nowhere near oversold on the daily time frame, so we have to be watching in case we do break this trend. But as of right now, the bulls are stronger on the daily time frame for LTC than any other name. The 4-hour time frame is very similar to what we're seeing in the other names, although we do have a higher low right now. We have the low of the pullback. The bounce also broke some lower highs. We'll look at that on the hourly, but look at the volume. There's no bull volume behind these 4-hour candlesticks. So we can't expect the bulls to turn around a trend if the volume is not there to back it up. Volume is our proven indicator, and right now the bulls are not proving anything. So here on the hourly time frame, we can see the bulls are buying the dip, trying to defend that higher low. And we had a bullish reversal candlestick just form, and we're trying to confirm it. That being said, it's going to be just another lower high because we're not going to break 44.58 right off the lows here. We're going to have to see another lower high, a higher low, and then a higher high to try and reverse this hourly trend. We're barely clinging to support here as well. 42.10, 41.88, and 41.38 are what stands out to me. And again, it's the lack of bull volume. So here, just like Bitcoin, we broke the hourly lower high pattern with the bounce that happened overnight. So same thing, you see the long lower wicks, the healthy consolidation, absolutely no follow through. As soon as we broke 44.25, that was the red flag that the bears were back in control. Look at the volume. Volume is increasing bear volume on the pullbacks, low bull volume on the bounce attempts, increasing bear volume on another leg to the downside. That is the exact opposite of what the bulls want to be seeing. They want to be seeing decreasing bear volume on consolidation, increasing bull volume on a move to the upside. And let's look back just to compare Ethereum on the hourly time frame back on the last bounce that we had. Let's look at what the hourly volume looked like then. So again, look at the green bars here. That is extremely significant bull volume right off the low. And then we pulled back and we saw increasing bear volume, and that was a scary moment. Uh-oh, we're going to dump down and see lower lows, and then increasing bull volume again as the bulls really got the ramp up going, and then just high bull volume following through to the upside. So that is one thing that is missing here. Another ramp up in volume, another leg to the upside, another ramp up in volume, increasing volume, leg to the upside. So that is what we are missing. Volume is the number one clue and the moral, not the moral, the theme of this video. So we'll see if we can confirm these bullish reversal candlesticks on the hourly time frame. Even if we do, still a lot of work to do for these bulls. And another thing is on GDAX, use those exponential moving average resistances that are on the chart on GDAX, because they've been acting as some very clear resistance on these bounces, where I'm looking at the hourly chart of Ethereum right now on my other monitor, and the first bounce here, we did get over those exponential moving averages, but we did not hold the back test on this consolidation. This rejected from exponential resistance. Here we rejected from exponential resistance. So until we can turn those exponential moving averages into support on GDAX, the bears will remain in control. We have to turn those into support. We have to see a bullish cross of those exponential moving averages in order to see the trend change as well. So those are all things that are currently missing from this bounce, and the bulls are not proving anything to us at this point. So we need to have game plans. Are we going to exit and rebuy lower? Are we going to just grit our teeth and hold on long? Are we going to be sitting in cash on the sideline right now? There's a lot of people in cash on the sideline, and there's a lot of happy people in cash on the sideline because they are playing some of these bounces and then going right back to cash and being very comfortable. And right now, that is the ideal scenario to be in. And it's really been the ideal scenario to be in ever since this consolidation started on the daily time frame. We hit our lower high as anticipated. It was even a little bit stronger than anticipated into the low 300s. But ever since then, we were looking for the bears to take back over. Not this significantly, but it put us in a nice position to be prepared for it when it did play out this significantly. So let's look at Golem. Golem came out with a new version of Brass today. I think they're 75% done the release. So this was the turnaround, and we've been getting beat up here big time. The daily time frame has been getting crushed, and we just have not seen 2 green days in a row. We have not seen 2 green days in a row since back at the end of June. That's the same thing for Ethereum. So just dumping here, breaking all kinds of support levels, and really putting a dent in the bullish momentum that we had. But we did see a bullish reversal candlestick. We're trying to confirm it. We're not doing so at this point. We are bouncing off of oversold on the hourly, or excuse me, the daily RSI. But we have to see at least 2 green candlesticks in a row, and we have to form higher lows and higher highs to reverse this trend. The hourly time frame did get a nice bump from that news coming out about the brass, but it's not really sticking. It's not really following through. So at this point on the daily time frame, same thing as what we're looking for on the hourly on these other names. We have to see a bounce, a lower high, pull back, form a higher low, and then get your higher high to change the trend. These lower highs and lower lows are clear bear continuation patterns, and we have to break that in order for the bulls to have any momentum for any kind of, yawn there, for any kind of follow through or trend change. So the hourly time frame, the volume, those are the number one things we're watching. Obviously the support down at the lows, and it's a pretty important overnight session here, and we'll see if we get a bear break to further downside or if some bull volume can finally show up. So I appreciate you watching, and we will check back in the near future.